Anyone who knows me will be able to tell you that I'm not just a normal Transformers fan. I was already a huge fan of the cartoons growing up, and when 2007 came around and the film came out, I became obsessed. Now seriously, here's a really low quality picture of my room after the film came out. I had the bed sheets, I had the curtains, I had the toys, I had the posters, I had the video games, I had all of them. I was truly obsessed. After watching that film, I set myself the goal that I would one day work on a Transformers film. Fast forward to 2021, and I found myself as the lead digital artist for characters on the latest Transformers film, Transformers Rise of the Beasts, literally achieving a childhood dream. During my time on the film, I worked on over 11 characters, but in this video, we're going to talk about my biggest single contribution. Let's talk about how I made Bumblebee. Everything starts off with concept art, and Bumblebee was no different. We had concept art given to us by the art department, and a lot of that came from his 2018 solo film. There had to be tie-ins between this film and the film that came before it, so there was a lot of tie-ins between the designs of the two different eras, and Bumblebee was one that had some upgrades to him, and the concept art reflected that. I was given the model from the 2018 film, and that provided a really good base for me to start matching to the concept art. And what that allowed me to do was just look at the concept art, see what is different, and start to match from there. Now, the 2018 solo film was done by ILM, and they used different workflows and different pipelines than what we do, so a lot of the model had to be updated and refreshed to make sure it worked for the pipeline that we had at MPC. The biggest differences between the models are, of course, the main body panels. A lot of them come from the car, and some of them are bespokely modeled. The biggest ones that come from the car are, of course, the door and the signature bust that he has from the front of the Camaro. So that was lifted directly from the car model that we had, which was matched to the real-life physical car. And once I had gotten those and I actually molded them into place and modeled it to look like the way it did in the concept art, I moved on to bespokely model the rest of the car panels, which weren't taken from the model, but just designed to look cool in a way that looked like it came from the actual car. Once the modeling of those pieces was done, it was then time to actually go in there and add loads of cool little details to make sure that they looked good and they looked believable and realistic. For example, each of the panels have riveting and panel denting, which meant that once the panels overlaid, they actually latched on top of each other nicely, and the undersides of the panel look a bit different and actually modeled a bit different as well from the outside of it, which is shiny, very nice, glossy, and the inside a bit more metallic and a bit more rustic. That provided a lot of contrast and visually and also model-wise to the actual model and ensured that there was a bit of difference between the side of it. One of the notes that I got from the studio was that in this film, Bumblebee is a lot more mature and he's a lot more of an adult character than he was in his 2018 solo film. So they wanted him to feel a lot more, grown up and strong and powerful than he did before. So I spent a lot of time on the silhouette, making sure that those notes came across in the way he looked as a silhouette, as a whole character. So really, the muscle areas, his arms, his calves, his shoulders, really leaned those out and made him look a little bit more athletic and a bit more bulky to really try and, sell that note to the audience. Bumblebee's abdomen was the only part of the concept model that had been redesigned from the 2018 film. So that's what I started off with when coming to the actual details side, once the main panel work was done. And once I had matched to the concept and noticed that the rest of the model wasn't really matching very well, I went ahead and actually started to redesign the different parts of his model as well, the detailing side of it, to make sure that it was all cohesive and gets a nice little upgrade detail-wise compared to his solo film. So the parts that I did redesign were his clavicle area, the shoulder area, the abdomen, of course, a lot of the arm section and the hand section, the inner workings of that were redesigned as well. The calves are completely redesigned, and the neck area is also completely redesigned as well. On top of all that, all of the details that make up Bumblebee had to be refreshed and upgraded a little bit from the previous film, just because a lot of the different pieces weren't working as they came, and I had to go in there and actually adjust each of them to make sure that they work correctly. His head and face remained largely unchanged in this film, with some slight tweaks, just because he is Bumblebee, he is super recognizable, and we wanted the character to stay the same and look the same thematically throughout the universe, and we wanted fans to be able to recognize him immediately as Bumblebee. So the changes that did actually come about are his, sidal ears are a little bit more slender and work a little bit nicer with the rest of his body. And his badging needed to be removable for when Scourge rips it out. So I made that removable, detached it from his head, and actually put a lot of cool details behind it. So cabling, little, rivets to match it, and little, bolting and stuff like that. Stuff that you never see in the film, unfortunately, but those details are there in case we did see it in the film in that shot. We wanted it to feel a lived-in, actual good part of it as well. On top of all that, one of the probably most controversial change to his face was the removal of the dummy. And that was, again, going back to that note from the studio where they wanted the character to feel more mature, more adult, and he has had a glow up, basically, and they felt like that dummy was making him feel a bit more like a baby, and removing that dummy would allow him to, have more of a grown-up look than what he did in his previous film. So we removed that. I didn't want to personally, but it was something that, unanimously, as the studios and the executives and the director, they decided it would be better for the character if they removed it and would serve his arc a bit better. Overall, the Bumblebee model had over 6,500 individual pieces that made up the entire character, and a lot of those pieces are, large panels, a lot of them are small panels, a lot of them are fasteners, a lot of them are visual, pistons and stuff like that to make him look cool. He had thousands and thousands of pieces that I had to go through meticulously and make sure they work really well within our pipeline, and also serve the character's overall cohesion and look as well. On top of all that, they all had to be UV'd and, to allow for texturing, and it ended up being 135 UDIMs for the character, which meant that he was so detailed and he had so much visual texture, like, surface area to allow us to really paint a lot of cool details and be able to put the camera wherever the director needed it to be without losing the, fidelity of the textures or the model, which, allowed that flexibility for our shots teams and our, cinematographer and the director to put the camera wherever they needed to tell the story without having to jeopardize the quality of the character. Bumblebee's iconic look is of course the same in this film as it has been pretty much forever. He still has that golden yellow and the black and darker neutral tones for the metals. And in this film it was no different. So the first thing that I had to do was actually match the car paint material to the real life on-set car that we had for the Camaro. And once that was done, of course, apply that to the digital models as well. And that was shared with the actual CG car model as well. So that allowed the CG car model and the CG character to share a material which both matched the physical car model as well. Once the car paint was matched, I moved on to the metals, and with the metals there were a lot of different variations of the metal. So there was the steel metal, which had in itself a few different variations. There was a normal steel material, there was a goldish hue steel material, and there was a bluish hue steel material as well. And these provided a really nice contrast, so it wasn't just a lot of steel, it was different types of steel, and each of these had very slight different variations in, material responses. One was a bit more shiny, one was a bit more dull, one was a bit more rough, and that allowed for a lot of visual interest in the actual metallic side of it as well, just because you don't want it to all look the same. Once those were done, then there were other materials as well, like rubber, cables, chrome, stuff like that had to be meticulously crafted as well to both match the physical car, if we had them in the physical car, and if we didn't, they had to match it, to reality. It had to look realistic. Once those were done, I moved on to stage 2 of look development, which was actually griming him up. So there was a lot of different layers of dirt and grime and soot and dust and scratches and rust that went into the character, even though there might not have been any on the actual physical car model. To make robots that are as shiny as these are look real, you need to dirty it up, you need to make it more grimy, you need to make it more dusty, and that's exactly what we did. And once those were done and in place and approved, then we went into the variations of them. So again, on top of that, there were several different variations. So Bumblebee had 4 different variations, going from the A variation, which is his cleanest form, all the way to the D variation, which is his dead form, which is after he's killed by Scourge. So the A is the most clean, the least dirty, the least damaged, and D is the most dirty, the most damaged, and of course he has that hole in his abdomen as well, which is his stab wound from after when he's stabbed by Scourge. And this allowed the flexibility for our shot teams to actually be able to go in there and, depending on the shot, switch out Bumblebee for his different variants. If he needs to be clean in this shot, bring in the A variant. If he needs to be slightly dirty, bring in the B variant. If he needs to be a little bit more dirty, bring in the C. If he's dead in the shot, bring in the D. That sort of flexibility is what we do in the film industry, and Bumblebee was no different. So 4 different variations of the variant for damage, and that allowed for the character to be versatile throughout the whole sequences as well. So Bumblebee also had props. He had his battle mask, which also was something that we had to account for, and he had his battle gun as well, which we also had to account for. Those went through very similar processes as the main character and the vehicle, and a lot of the materials were shared. So once the materials for the actual main character was done by me, I handed off the character to the rest of the team, and they were able to take the parts that translated to the battle mask and the gun and apply it to those props respectively, to make sure everything matches correctly, and the gun doesn't feel like it's from a different character, and the battle mask doesn't feel like it's from a different character. It was all cohesive and made to be from the same character. The response to Bumblebee after the film came out was amazing. Honestly, seeing the fans and their reception to the character, such an iconic character, and loving the character in that film was such a humbling experience for me. And as a massive Transformers fan myself, being able to see other Transformers fans have that reception, have that response to the character, which is so beloved, and knowing that, hey, I helped bring that character to life is, something that is really dear to me, and it's definitely one of the highlights of my career, and it will be a highlight of my career going forwards in my life as well. And the response from everyone else around as well, just the normal people watching the film, really liking the character, and even random stuff such as small toys that you see, some fan art that people draw, some fan art that people create, some videos, some other 3D models that people try to replicate from the one that we created for the film, and even stuff like collector's edition toys, which allowed let me show you. I have one right here. So this is a collector's edition toy, basically. Maybe you can't call it a toy, maybe an action figure. And this is actually extremely accurate to what I modeled. It actually is 1-to-1. I'm pretty sure we actually sent them, the company, the model, the 3D model that I modeled, and they were able to build it based on the model that we created. You can see all the details that I was able to model that you don't actually see in the film, which is really awesome. Holding the model that you created for a film after being such a big Transformers fan as well, and seeing all the small bits and the small little details that you spent countless nights on trying to get right, trying to make it look good for the fans. Seeing it in front of you and being able to touch it and hold it physically is a surreal experience that hasn't been matched by anything else I've done in my career so far. And you can see all the small little details that you don't get to appreciate when it's in a film, because it's an action scene, he's in this, he's in that. You don't really get to see it, but like now, just being able to look at it and touch it and move it around and pose it however you want, it is super cool. And that is what is so awesome about contributing to a film, a franchise as iconic as Transformers, and a character as iconic as Bumblebee, because you get these sort of things that happen, and it makes you look back on it a few years from now, like I do now, and be able to appreciate that, hey, I contributed to that character, such an iconic character. And now fans like me who were younger, maybe it was their first time watching a Transformers film with this, and having the same feeling that I had when I was a kid watching the first Transformers film back in 2007, and knowing that I contributed a little bit to that project, is a really humbling process, and it's honestly a highlight of my career. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It is a new format that I'm trying out, and I want to do more of these videos going forward, more informal talking about the work that I've done, and also going forward I want to do more kinds of videos like this as well, not just about the kind of work that I've done, the kind of work I'm doing, and also just more informal vlog type of content. And this is the first one, so give me some feedback, let me know what you think worked, what you think didn't work, how I can improve for the next one, and let me more of these come in as well. And the more I create them, the more comfortable I'll get creating them, the more confident I'll get creating them, and hopefully the quality of the videos improve for you watching. So thanks so much for making it this far in the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.